Hi, welcome to DA Australia. We've got someone I'd like to introduce. You probably know him pretty well. Chris Brislin. We've got him in for a bit of a chat today, and welcome to DA, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
It's kind of weird saying hello to you working here. You're like part of the furniture. You've been here quite a while.
Absolutely.
We get lots of questions about you, and I thought I'd ask a couple just to try and inform everyone. How did you get involved in model aircraft? How did it all come about?
Oh, well, I've always been pretty obsessed with flying from a very young age, and I had a neighbour who had a model airplane, and he took me out to the field one day and gave me a fly of it, and I've been hooked ever since then.
Did Dad ever forgive that neighbour, mate?
I don't think so, no. It hasn't stopped since then. It started off with a cheap trainer, which soon grew into a bigger trainer, and then bigger planes.
Pretty much you were in a pattern for quite a while, the F3A, and I'm pretty sure you were F3A Masters by 13, is that right?
Yeah, that's about right, yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
It was a bit of a challenge though. It took me a while to get there, and it was really interesting learning that discipline of flying. You like the discipline side of the whole thing? Absolutely, it's a huge challenge. It gives you something every single flight. You know, you're going out there looking for perfection. You never find it, but it's a good challenge.
It's a bit different, IMAC to F3A. I mean, what differences do you like between the two? Is the freestyle more appealing to you that way?
I like the more complex sequences and variety you get in IMAC, and the freestyle flying as well is very entertaining. The F3A though is probably you're judged harder in F3A, so they're looking for a high level of precision. But it's not quite as exciting, and you know, to fly smaller planes, flying these big planes is just something you don't get to do anywhere else. So.
As part of the attraction, there's a big gas gather?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a massive part of it. The noise, the sight, and everything.
Yeah, the first time I remember seeing you was in 2005 down at Logan when we had the first DA Challenge, or the Queensland Challenge it was called. That was sponsored by DA. You were flying in advance. I think there was no unlimited pilots around in those days, and pretty much you were about that high, if I remember right, and you've probably only grown a foot since then.
Yeah, probably about that. Yeah.
But I remember that the transmitter being a bit bigger than you then. Your first impressions of IMAC at the time, I mean, it must have been hard for you being the only one in Queensland flying advanced and above at that time. But
no, it wasn't hard at all. You know, there was great people. It was great fun. You know, it was quite laid back, and the unknown sequences that was extremely exciting. It's just kept you on your toes the entire event. I loved it.
I've got to say, that's one thing that impressed me, because I'd seen a few guys fly up to that point, and watching you fly the advanced unknown, I was quite surprised, because I must admit, a little bit of a green-eyed monster come out. Ian told me, said, I picked up this kid, he flies fantastic, you ought to see him go, and I want to sponsor him. And I went, oh, really? And I didn't know who you were, but I was quite impressed the first time I saw you. You flew really, really well. But that kind of support from DA, I mean, you've been with DA Australia for a long time, they've been supporting you. How important is that to be into your flying career?
It is absolutely crucial. If I didn't have DA, I would not be flying big planes, I would not have gone to Tucson, I wouldn't be where I am today, so it's absolutely essential. You know? It's
pretty expensive kind of, at your level to get into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
2 models, etc. It's pretty expensive to set them up.
It is very expensive, so you know, and all started with DA, but after that, you know, after they got me overseas the first time, the rest of the sponsors came on board, and it just got easier and easier, but it wouldn't have happened without DA in the first place.
It's pretty easy once you're famous, just getting to the fame stage. It's a little bit harder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, 2007 was your first trip to the Tucson shootout, and you flew in unlimited and freestyle. You won the unlimited class, which was pretty amazing. I remember being there for that, and you came 16th in freestyle. You had a few touch and goes in freestyle. We can touch on that. I think that you had 2 DNFs in the first and second round, and you come 4th in the last round where you actually completed it.
Yeah, that's it. No, that was a very interesting experience. I mean, the unlimited side, the precision side, was where I was really focusing, and that paid off in the end and got a great result. I was really happy to, you know, go into unlimited that year and take it out, you know, as an unknown pilot. It was massive for me, and the freestyle, that was something else. Yeah.
Well, the boys were pretty busy putting your plane back together.
Yeah.
They smacked the ground a couple of times. So.
That's right. No, that was a big learning curve, and I think we learned some things that year that we took back the next year and made a huge difference.
That experience for you, it was pretty beneficial for the oncoming years. Really, it was.
Yeah, absolutely. It changed the whole outlook. We planned the trip a year ahead. You know, and it really does make a difference. You practice that whole year, and you make sure your equipment can cope with the stresses.
So do you think it's pretty much going to Tucson and doing an event like that, you kind of need a year's experience under your belt to, you know, just to really know what you're doing and get the nerves out of the way a little bit?
Absolutely. I think the first year is a big learning curve. doesn't matter how many people have done it before you, you've still got to make your own mistakes and learn your own way through there. And so and then when you can take that experience back next year, and really helps a lot.
We went back in 2008 and you had an automatic invitational position given to you, because it's automatic when you win the unlimited section in Tucson. The only one that gets guaranteed a position the next year is the winner of unlimited gets guaranteed a position in invitational if he so wants. Now you chose to go there, which I thought was a great idea. How did it feel going up against all your heroes like Simonzini and Shulman and Jetski, etc.? I mean,
and they were still my heroes. I still idolised them, you know. I didn't even feel like I was competing against them. It was quite bizarre, but it was really amazing to be competing against them, you know, to be in that position. It didn't dawn on me until well after the event happened. So, and I was really glad I earned my place in Invitational as well. After coming first on Unlimited the previous year, I didn't want to just jump straight into Invitational, so
yeah,
that was really good.
I noticed it was a bit different when we went in 08. You had a lot more people expecting to see something out of you for freestyle. I mean, because a lot of guys did watch what you were doing, and it was quite surprising to me that everyone, you know, even though you flopped on the ground in two rounds, a lot of people seen what you were capable of, and your freestyle performance was pretty amazing. You ended up second that year, and fifth in Invitational, which is quite credible. I mean, Simonzini come behind you, which I remember standing there and Simonzini was going, "You fly really good," as in his squeaky little voice that he does, which was pretty exciting. Just your freestyle performance there was amazing. It was pretty brilliant. That kind of freestyle, to put that kind of thing together, how difficult is that?
Well, when I went back in 2008, I sort of reversed focus from the previous year. You know, I started to concentrate a little bit more on the freestyle than the IMAC to try and even out a little bit, and I think that showed in the result as well. But the freestyle was a huge challenge. It took me months and months and months to actually get a freestyle down that I liked. Well, actually years. You know, it started in 2007 that I started trying to come up with a good freestyle, and I only eventuated in 2008. And it's just took a whole lot of listening to different music, coming up with maneuvers for each individual song, and then trying to piece it together and come up with maneuvers for in between songs and in between other maneuvers.
So when you were selecting songs, did you have that in mind, that you had wanted to go to a wider group of people that you needed to appeal to? Or?
Absolutely. You know, you had to come up with songs that appealed to basically everyone. You know, it's not too much point choosing a song that suits you and suits the maneuvers. You've got to come up with a song that suits everyone and suits the maneuvers, and that's really tough. You know, I've got quite a huge collection of music on my computer now after going through it all.
Yeah, so it's all legal, of course.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that, Crispy. So yeah, after that event, I remember it was almost launching a rock star status. You know, I've been calling it a rock star for a little while now, but even getting out of the airport, I was surprised people just wanted to come and shake your hands. And I remember your dad being a little nervous, like going, "How do these people know who he is?" And it's like something you better get used to. Did things change dramatically for you then?
Oh, I didn't feel like things changed too much. I mean, occasionally people recognise me, and, you know, have seen a video or two on the internet, but it didn't change too much at all for me personally. So
yeah, well, you remain pretty much the same from what I've noticed, but
try to, yeah.
Well, your head didn't get too big anyway, so which is pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we come back to Australia. You pretty much cleaned everything up over here. When you're flying, it's just something I may notice. Yeah, but when you're flying here in Unlimited, do you find it challenging still, or can you just turn yourself off a little bit?
Oh, you can't turn yourself off. When you come back, people look a lot closer at you flying.
Yeah.
So you've got to fly just as sharp, because they'll pick you to pieces if you slip up. So.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one thing I did notice. People were pretty keen to pick you to pieces.
Yeah, that's it.
In some of the which is
it's great, you know. In a way, it's really good. You know, it keeps you sharp and keeps you well practiced for, you know, the next big event. So.
The one thing I find too is like when we went to do the invitational sequences, which I've got to say in 09 they were the most complex sequences I've ever seen, and the unknowns were horrendous. You seem to grow an extra leg when it comes to do those. You seem to cope with them really, really well. Where I've seen some other guys in Unlimited, they can do Unlimited okay. After that, the next step's difficult to take. Did you find that step horrendously hard, or you just sort of went with the flow and got through it okay?
Before the sequences came out, I assumed that they would be absolutely horrible sequences, you know, horrendously difficult. And so I practiced maneuvers, you know, that I thought that they could never give me, but they ended up doing that. So that made it a lot easier to leap into those sequences. But yeah, it was a huge step from unlimited style sequences.
Yeah, they were. they are power sapping things too. Like the poor old 260 got a bit of a caning when we went out with that, but. Yeah, including the unknowns last year. In the last two, they were the most intense I've ever seen.
Yeah, last year's were very technical. Maybe not quite as difficult, not quite as difficult to fly, but very technical and aimed to trick people up, aimed to make people make mistakes, which was.
It kind of worked too.
It does, absolutely.
Well, 2008 you went back again, and you were after 2008. Sorry, we went back again for 2009. But on the way back in the plane, you had some pretty good ideas. What did you really felt you needed to change in your models to get things better, to take the next step, to get still on the podium but a little higher up?
Yeah, well, I wanted to make the most of the new technology and new engines that were coming out,
Yeah.
At that time, I was using the 150 on tuned pipes in my freestyle plane, which was a fantastic combination, which I really enjoyed, but I felt like you could go even further with the 170, which was lighter, and build a lighter plane would totally change the freestyle characteristics of the plane.
Yeah.
That's the same. The IMAC plane as well. I felt could be lighter again to cope with thinner air in Tucson, and it all paid off. I ended up with more power and lighter model, and it worked in the end.
Yeah, flying in Tucson's a little difficult. A lot of people might not know, but you're at 3,000 foot elevation there, and your model starts to gasp a little bit. It kind of runs out of energy, and it's coming from sea level to go to the higher area in Tucson, you really notice a power loss. Does that make practice difficult from when you get there, or is it something you have to adjust to?
It's something that does make you start flying pretty bad when you get there initially, and it's a fair bit of adjustment that you have to make. But once you've adjusted, and the stick inputs and it's sort of committed to memory, you can go on from there and you get right back to where you were before you left.
I notice you make a lot of rate changes too when you get over there. Is it a dramatic change or just subtle changes?
Very subtle changes, like 1 or 2%.
Right.
On Expo and on the actual dual rate itself. So.
I suppose that's what makes you different to the rest of us. You can feel 1 or 2%.
Yeah, ever so slightly. It's a very slight difference.
I remember for the practice for 2009, you put in an enormous effort. You were still going through high school then too. You were doing your last year at HSC, I think, was it? Or
yeah, my Queensland's core skills and all that sort of thing.
It was HSC in my day, so forgive me for that. So that wasn't too bad. That schedule was pretty telling on you. I think there was a lot of effort put in, and
it was quite a tough year, to finish all the assignments and get a good result at school to get into university, and also to have enough practice to go to Tucson confidently was quite tough.
Yeah.
But it worked out in the end, and the school was also quite supportive with it and allowed a few time changes, which was really helpful.
So did anybody at school really know what you were doing?
Not really. When I tell them I fly model planes, they don't ask many more questions.
He's a weirdo.
Yeah, I just think, oh yeah, little toys. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like having toy trains, isn't it? So yeah, okay. The last shootout, you finished 4th in Invitational. How did you feel with that? Were you happy with that performance, or were you
I was thrilled. I was thrilled. I was struggling a little bit that year, but could have been a lack of practice, technical difficulties leading up to it. But yeah, no, I was really happy with the end result, to increase the place. That's the goal I went across with, was to increase by 1 place. So. It
was a pretty tough comp. I mean, I think 980 was your high score.
Yeah.
Which you think, well, Leesburg's getting thousands, you're getting 980s. That's pretty good. It's not too bad. But what do you feel is missing to get that last couple of percent, to catch up with a guy like Leesburg? And he's a machine, really.
Absolutely. Well, Leesburg is absolutely consistent. He won't miss anything by more than 5 degrees. It is just rock solid the entire time. Whereas I would go through and have really good flight, really clean flight, not miss anything, then go through another flight which was a little bit rougher, maybe 10 degrees deviation on a few maneuvers, and then terrible flight, and it wasn't quite consistent enough. And that's really the difference. You can't afford to miss. It's not about flying in some competitions is about not getting a 0. Flying over there, it's about scoring high as well as not getting a 0.
I don't think you got a 0 that whole competition from memory. So
no, that was very lucky. So
well, I think it was pretty consistent. I mean, those unknowns were horrendous. I was more worried about tripping over my tongue when I was trying to call them for you, but you've seen them pretty well locked in your mind. Okay, on the freestyle section, nearly there. Second again for the 2nd year in a row. You missed winning that by less than 2 points to Gurno. And Gurno's a bit of a champion. How much did that bit hurt?
Oh, that was pretty rough. You know, you don't stop thinking about that. It was good experience. I know how close I came. Probably could have taken it if I didn't touch in the last round, but it was all very exciting, you know.
Well, it was good going in the last round, because Gurnard won a round, you won the second round.
Yeah.
And it was all up there to win, wasn't it? So, you know.
It was. I was coming into the third round, I was in first place.
Yeah.
But, and I needed to stay there and put in a pretty good round, I thought, to stay ahead of Gurno. And so I tried my hardest, and yeah, ended up a little bit lower than expected, and that showed. Yeah,
subterranean doesn't usually work, but you know, I think from Gurno's perspective, probably sitting in the pits when you touched the ground, I'm sure his heart rate picked up a couple of beats, and he thought, I just got to finish this one.
Yeah, yeah. Talking to him afterwards, he was pretty glad that it ended the way it did. So.
Well, it worked out fairly well. I think, you know, the crowd was really behind you on that one, and walking over to the crowd, I was pretty amazed about how keen they were just to shake your hand and say well done, and I thought they showed you get a lot of attention in Tucson, and the crowd seems to be a lot behind you. You know, I think that's a credit to you. That, you know, I think you do really well there, that they like you as much as their own guys, which is always a little bit tough. Okay, when it comes to your models, when you're setting up your iMac model and your freestyle model, what sort of differences do you have?
It's quite. They look identical on the outside, and they are very, very similar. But the main differences I have is my freestyle model is capable of a lot smaller throws. So I've got arms that are about a ½ inch smaller on the iMac plane to make most of the servo resolution, and that makes a massive difference in the way the plane flies. Center of gravity isn't that much different from the freestyle plane. It's probably further forward by about 1 or 2 centimeters, which isn't a huge amount. It doesn't actually feel too different from the freestyle plane. It's about the same weight as a freestyle plane.
Yeah.
A little bit less complexity, no smoke tank or anything like that, and it runs a 3-blade prop, which is a fair bit of a difference.
You normally use a 12 pitch prop, don't you? 30 by 12 on your plane?
Yeah, on the freestyle plane.
Which is pretty unusual. Most guys seem to go for a 10 pitch or something lower in pitch. How did you arrive at that? How did you work it? Well, that one suits you better, or?
I like, because the freestyle is not just about hovering and rolling around. It's, you know, you've got to fly around and be precise as well. You've got to show a huge amount of variety in your flying. The 12-inch prop is really good for that. You know, you've got the pitch speed for when you're flying along. It makes the plane really groove, and then you've got, it's nice, the 30 by 12 prop really suits 170. It's nice and revvy, it's really quick to respond, and that makes a huge difference as well.
I've seen you use a wide variety of props. You tried 3-blade and so forth too, but
yeah,
the 2-blade 30 by 12 seem to be your favourite.
Yeah, I've tried, you know, the 3211 Air models, all kinds of 2-bladed props, and I keep coming back to the 3012. It seems to respond the best, especially on the 170.
That Air models prop, that's the one that makes your ears bleed, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
You can't use it in Australia.
No, but it's a great prop.
I think the Americans like it. I've seen a few judges fall off their chair at one time there when we're over there. We can pull cables. You run straight cables. What's with that? I get a lot of discussion about this.
Oh boy, no. It probably doesn't make any difference at all. But I don't know. For me, I prefer straight cables. It feels. I don't know. I think it feels a little bit better in the air, but it shouldn't make any difference at all.
Well, I'm trying it in my edge.
It's easier for me to build as well, so I like that.
Well, I'm trying it in my edge this time. If it doesn't work, I'm going to come talk to you.
Yes.
You've been flying the Comp R260 for quite a few years now, and it seems to be something that works really well for you. What is it you like about this model? You know, I mean, pretty much you can have any model you want now, being in the position you're in, but you still keep flying the 260, and that still seems to be the thing that suits you the best.
Yeah, it's the plane I've flown for the longest, so I'm very familiar with it. I can set one up in 2 or 3 flights now, very quickly, and it's really quite a weapon. You know, it's a bit like a racing car. You know, it'll do things really, really well if you fly it within its limits, but it'll also make maneuvers look really ugly if you get it wrong.
So in the hands of the wrong person, it can look pretty bad.
Absolutely, it can be a very hard plane to fly well, but when it flies well, it's a very good plane.
One thing I always liked about the Comp R260 is the way it snaps. It's really precise.
It is very, very sharp.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. Now, what are you doing now? You haven't been doing much for the last year or so. You've been taking a little bit of a rest since you finished school and gone through university. You've been getting into helis, which I'm really disappointed about, but how's all that working out for you?
Oh, it's good, it's good. Yeah, like you say, I've been taking a little bit of a rest. I've been following another dream, which was to get into the full-size flying. Yep. And that's been going really well. I've recently picked up a cadetship with Regional Express Airlines.
Well done, man.
Thank you. So that means May 16th this year I go down to Wagga, and where I start training on Saab 340s, and I learn to fly the real thing, and I'll be flying with Regional Express Airlines by next year. So
fantastic.
it means the models have to take a back seat for a little while, but hopefully I'll be back in it next year, if not the year after.
Well, I don't think we'll lose you forever.
No, definitely not. It's, you know, it's something you get from the models that you don't get anywhere else, which I really enjoy.
And with the helicopters, what's the go with that?
Yeah, that's just for the fun of it.
I was pretty disappointed, I've got to tell you. You seem like you're enjoying it, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they teach you a few things for the planes, but other than that, it's really good fun. I like fiddling with complex mechanical setups like that. They're just fun to fly. So.
Terrific. Well, Chris, thanks for coming in. It's been a real pleasure talking to you again. And from my perspective as a pilot, mate, it's been great working with you. You're one of the best guys I've ever worked with. And thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Richo.
Good to talk to you. Happy days.